mother, Gwendolyn Jones, always taught me and taught us, every day of your life you're in school, and every situation or person you meet is your teacher. So school is just not the formal attendance of going to school. It's who you meet, who you work with, our community. That's our school. And I want to talk a little bit about why I had everyone have a copy of the Daily Word. We will be in school at the end. We will be using it. Okay. So why my title? Working as an unofficial legal aid for my lawsuit against Minneapolis College, and some of you have heard my story, and I will continue to share that story. I was tasked with sorting over 15,000 documents of stuff. At times, I was unsure about how to categorize some of the things or contents in the documents. After giving it much thought and coming up short, John, my husband, suggested I create a file titled Stuff and Things, a title that resonates to all of us when you don't know where to put something. It's just stuff or it's things. The biblical connection to stuff is in the narrative where Jacob and Laban used stuff to describe personal belongings. And I quote from Genesis 31:37. Whereas thou hast felt about all my stuff, what hast thou found of all my household stuff? Set it here before my brethren and thy brethren, that they may judge between us too. And in 1 Samuel chapter 10, verse 22, when Saul is chosen to be king, he was found hiding among the stuff, indicating the baggage or equipment of the people. And I quote, therefore they asked of the Lord further, is there yet a man to come hither? And the Lord answered, behold, he has hid himself among the stuff. Speaking of stuff, I did my due diligence and checked in with ChatGPT about the word stuff in a spiritual context. And their answer was, stuff is clutter. Or stuff can be clutter, can be stifled growth, can be energy blockages. And with the Buddhism and non-attachment teachings, the Buddhists view attachment both to things and to the idea of self as a primary cause of suffering, or what they refer to as dukkha. Christianity and our worldly possessions are viewed as stuff, or material possessions. Another example ChatGPT gave me was letting go, which is very similar to Unity's Lenten teachings. In Lent, an acronym we use in Unity, L-E-N-T, let's eliminate negative thinking or negative thoughts. So we're on point with ChatGPT. Unity, as Charles Fillmore says, in Keep a True Lent, believes the people who let their thinking faculty attach itself to the things of the earth are limiting or binding their free ideas, heaven, and they therefore become slaves to hard and material conditions and things, gradually shutting out any desire for higher thinking. Stuff is external, or thoughts and things and thinking is internal and spiritual. So I want to start and talk a little bit about things. In the revealing word, Charles Fillmore says, thought is a product of thinking, a mental vibration or impulse. One of the axiomatic truths of metaphysics is that thoughts are things. His co-founder and wife, Myrtle Fillmore, said the same thing in the book, How to Let God Help You. Things are thoughts. And then there's a biblical connection to things as thoughts. Proverbs 23:7 says, as he thinketh within himself, so is he. That's ancient wisdom, which teaches us that we are the result of what we have thought about. We are made up of our thoughts. 2 Corinthians 4:18 also tells us, as we look not to the things that are seen, but to the things that are unseen. For the things that are seen are transient, and the things that are unseen are eternal. And in Philippians 4:8, finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about those things. These biblical verses are echoed by many leaders. Ralph Waldo Emerson, the Chinese philosopher, Lao Tzu, the supermarket magnate, Frank Outlaw, Buddhist spiritual leaders. And they say it this way, as we do. Watch your thoughts, they become words. Watch your words, they become actions. Watch your actions, they become your habits. Watch your habits, they become your character. Watch your character, it becomes your destiny. Unity teaches us that thoughts held in mind produce in kind. In other words, our thoughts and our beliefs are the creative force that shapes our experience, much like a blueprint guides the construction of a house. 3 weeks ago, I talked about courage and the cost of courage. And I introduced you to my father's story of courage. Today, I'm advancing that message to include resilience. Any courageous experience requires us to sort out our lives and be resilient in the face of that experience. While courage and resilience are intimately connected, they are different entities. Courage is bravery, the willingness to act in the face of fear or potential negative consequences. Resilience, on the other hand, is the ability to bounce back from that adversity. Get up, gather your strength, and adapt and change in the face of that challenge. There is no coincidence that today's daily word is aligned with both of my messages. Courageous and strong, I am resilient. Folks, you cannot make that stuff up. Everyone, the Daily Word says, who gets knocked down from time to time has a choice whether to give up or get up. Getting up and gathering the strength and desire to try again is resilience. And this message from the Daily Word resonates with another story I will share with you. And this time it's the story of my brother's story. And I will read it in his words. I have to tell you, he was courageous. I'm going to be honest, I pestered him to write this because it was a very painful experience. And so here we are. In his words, in 2003, I was no longer enjoying my job as a software developer for the federal government and began planning for retirement. Through the Army Reserve, I joined a group, Troops to Teachers, that was recruiting retiring military professionals for teaching positions in disadvantaged school systems. The organization provided stipends towards training and teacher certification in exchange for a 3-year teaching commitment. Since I had a science background, I decided to obtain certification to teach middle school and high school science. It took me 2 years to complete the program. In February of 2005, I was offered a job as a middle school science teacher in Gulfport, Mississippi, and immediately filed for early retirement, effective June 2005. I had the new beginning I so desperately wanted. I had spent over 35 years in Washington, D.C., Maryland area, and was looking forward to meeting something new. In July of 2005, I arrived in Biloxi, Mississippi to begin teacher orientation at Gulfport Middle School. 2 weeks later, I was in the classroom with a bunch of 7th graders who had no classroom discipline. What had I gotten myself into was the first question I asked. On August 28th, the day before Hurricane Katrina was due to make landfall, I evacuated with my 2 dogs to Greenville, Alabama, about 4 hours inland. It was the first place that I could find with available lodging that would take my dogs. The TV news channels showed the devastation that the hurricane had caused along the entire Gulf Coast. There was no power, no gas, and many impassable roads, but residents were allowed back during the day. I packed my van with my extra gas cans and made the 4-hour trip back to Biloxi. The TV cameras did not capture the devastation in my neighborhood. My house and all the stuff and things that I had accumulated disappeared. That included the pictures I brought from St. Kitts, the baby pictures of my daughters growing up, my naturalization certificate, all of my Social Security documents, my passport, and everything I owned. In essence, everything but the overnight bag I left with was what I had. I literally had the new beginning I asked for when I relocated, but not in the easy way I expected. I was devastated, but I survived. I'm emotional, I'm sorry. Even though I know it and I've read it. 1 month later, after school reopened, I secured a FEMA trailer and finished the school year teaching these kids in June of 2006. The 10 months I spent in the trailer was a long way from my house in Maryland. Because of the devastation to the housing in the area, I was let out of the 3-year obligation I had committed. I was on the move again, with no specific destination in mind. I journeyed inland to Atlanta and spent the remainder of the year in recovery mode. In January 2007, I decided to return to teaching, But this time I would select a different audience. I was going to teach adults. I accepted a job at Atlanta Technical College as a reading instructor and algebra tutor. The school provides associate degrees, diplomas, and technical certificates. Those students who wanted to transition to a four-year college had to meet the algebra requirement. That was my challenge, and I enjoyed it. I finally retired in 2016 and can say without a doubt that this job was the most fulfilling of my working career. I want to add a couple of things to this. My brother retired as a lieutenant colonel in the Army. He was my rock and inspiration when I was fired. Because if that could happen to him, this was a piece of cake for me. I'm grateful for his courage and for letting me know what he did and for writing about it, as he thanked me for helping him to write it. So I want to publicly thank my brother. He was resilient. As I think about this, what were some of the things as I talked with him and as I looked at my own experience and I look at what we do at Unity? Stillness comes to mind for me. James Dillard Freeman, former director of Silent Unity, described the silence as a holy place of stillness and peace. In his article in The Silence, he states that the purpose of silence is an awareness of God. The silence is within you. It is a prayer method that relaxes the body, opens the mind, and tunes out the five senses. This seed was planted way before James Dillard Freeman. Our co-founder Myrtle Fillmore, in her book, How to Let God Help You, states, that which the world has come to give does not satisfy. But when we go into that secret place, when we learn to be still and to know that I am, as Don Rollinson taught us this morning in his community prayer, I am, God is, we lack nothing. The silence is a kind of stillness, a place of retreat into which we may enter, and having entered, we'll know the truth. We go into the silence by observing the prayer practice, be still and know. One of the richest gifts that God has given to man and costs nothing. The second way to build that resilience is affirmations, affirmative prayer. Something that I learned and learned well in Unity, but even better as a chaplain, thanks to Sharon and Don. Prayer is more than supplication. It is an affirmation of truth. Thought is controlled by the right use of affirmation and denial, by the power of our minds. Affirmative prayer is a completely different form of prayer, as we've learned with the work of Linda Martella Witzef, which Sharon preached about earlier in the month. The teaching of oneness. Affirmative prayer provides us with a tool for consciously aligning our thoughts, words, and actions with our divine goodness, our divine identity. And folks, Isaiah 30:15 reads, "In quietness and in confidence shall be your strength." That was my brother's strength in the trailer. In quietness and in confidence. I used a lot of those practices in my experience. Affirmations. And I want to focus on affirmations, and I want everyone to take out the daily word that you have. This daily word sample is filled with affirmations. Filled with affirmations. I just want to point out a couple of them. Right at the very beginning, I am resilient. Say that with me, everyone. I am resilient. Not I plan to be resilient. This is not a future thing. This is the here and now. Further down, and I'm going to point out a couple more. You can create your own affirmation. So all we need to do is to put an I am before courageous and strong. So I am courageous and strong. Together, I am courageous and strong. And it goes on to talk about getting up and gathering the strength to try again is resilience. And it says spiritual living. I am using spiritual living to build me up. You can write it out. I want you now, when you look at daily words, to think of affirmations. It says claiming divine ideas in prayer. I claim divine ideas in prayer. Together, I claim divine ideas in prayer. I engage the power of my imagination to envision my success. Together, I engage the power of my imagination to envision my success. And the next one, I use my wisdom and will to discern the best way forward. Together, I use my wisdom and will to discern the best way forward. And continue, I choose to be resilient in the face of defeat or discouragement. Together, I choose to be resilient in the face of defeat. Okay. And the next paragraph, I am willing to keep trying until I succeed. I am willing to keep trying until I succeed. And at the very bottom, the way we started, I am resilient. I am resilient. Thank you very much. And as I close, I offer you a prayer. So be still for a moment. Take some deep breaths in, please. And as I end, in this closing moment of stillness, I go quietly within and access my still small voice, the voice that expresses my inner knowing, the voice that brings me comfort and assurance that all is well. Breathe into my very own essence, my rhythmic essence of Christ and Christ consciousness. Inhale, be still, and exhale and know. Allow your thoughts to be fully present. Stand firm, grounded in your spark of divinity, celebrating your alignment with your spiritual strength, clothed with the conviction of your courage and the firmness of your resilience. You are now prayerfully prepared to withstand any wind of change or challenge you may face. Affirm the stability and sustainability of your efforts to embody stillness as you rest in the eternal arms of God. And so it is. I also want you to know we have a wonderful author among us, Words to the Wise. You will never be short of looking for ways to frame an affirmation. Thank you. Now, we're going to do, Tyler will do the offering. Yes, and then you'll sing. Yeah. So, our offering affirmation, please, together. God gives abundantly, I receive thankfully, and give again generously. This is the bounty of God, and we send it forth with wisdom and joy.